that my mom felt to take such extreme action. So when she left, she had locked the door, but my brothers were outside, and I convinced them to open the door so I can go use the restroom, and they did. And then that's when I told my oldest brother, I'm leaving, I'm done. And he begged me, no, don't leave. It's going to be different. And I knew, no, it's not. And so I ran away. I was gone for about 2 years, I want to say. I missed school that whole time. I was living with different people off and on, just wherever I could, whatever I could do to, in a sense, make my presence not a heavy burden on anyone, to just keep everybody happy, like, oh, we're glad to have her here. And so I would just do whatever I could, whether it was cleaning, whether it was babysitting, whatever it was, I did so that I became like a people pleaser. I was just found a way to always make sure that I kept someone happy or that they were not upset with me. So come around that time, my brothers had been attending a church. And the pastor there knew our situation of my mom and, knowing that I was a runaway. So somehow, one day, honestly, throughout this whole time, I remember just crying out to God and being like, God, this is not the life that you have for me. I know this is not it. And I would stay up and I would cry all night. And I would put on, at that time, there was this Christian girls group that was called Out of Eden. And I would listen to them at night in the dark. And I would just cry and ask God to help me. And I didn't want to live like this anymore. And during this time, I was also experimenting with, like, drugs here and there, nothing heavy, nothing like, I had to have it. It was just, if it was there, I just did it because, it kind of eased my pain or lack of, life that I felt. So I would cry and say, God, this is not the life for me. Like, I don't know how you're going to do this. Please help me. So I remember seeing, one time we went to the movies, and I remember seeing the pastor's daughter there. And I was trying to avoid her. Like, I was trying to be like, oh my gosh, there she is. I was with this other lady that I was living with, and I was trying to hide, and they happened to see me. And that began my whole journey of going back to church. They were inviting me to go to the youth group. They would come and pick me up. And eventually I opened up about what was happening, and they took me in. So they found a family from the church that was able to take me in, and they were willing to give me a chance. Really, it was because of God. The father of the family, he felt, he had prayed. God had put it in him to bring me in. But the family wasn't sure. They're like, well, we don't know. We don't really know her much. We don't know, we don't know. And so he said, well, pray about it, because I know that I hear God saying this. So then they met up again, and when they met up again to have a meeting, a family meeting, they were like, we don't hear anything. And he said, well, I know that God is speaking to me, so we're going to bring her in. So at this time, I was about probably 16, and ended up going back to school. We searched for my mom, because at this time, I didn't have any way to, go back to school or have visits, doctors, and all that. So they ended up hiring a private investigator, but they couldn't find my mom. But I found out later that during this time, my mom was actually in Mexico, and that's why they couldn't find her. So I was actually happy. I didn't want to go back with my mom. I was scared. I was like, God, I don't want to go back. And I was happy that they didn't find her. And so I was able to get through the judge legal custody. They got legal custody in the sense that they were able to sign papers for me to be able to go to school and visit the doctors and all that. So I graduated school. Thank God I was the first one in my family to graduate high school. And So I was able to go through the school, went through a nice school. The family was, pretty well off. The dad was an air traffic controller, so they owned a pretty decent little house and very humble people. And so I graduated, and then throughout this time, I was really, really like close to God. Like in high school, people would call me the Jesus freak. Like I was, sorry, my mouth is so dry right now because I'm so nervous. So, I was really close to God. I stayed out of a lot of like trouble that you would say a lot of the teenagers would get into. So I was seeking God. I was praying, going to church. So I was doing okay during this time in my walk. And then I moved out at 18, got my own place with another girl who is also a Christian. And so I did okay during that year. But then that started, in a sense, I stopped slowly praying. And I stopped showing up to church slowly, little by little. And eventually, I just didn't go back. And during this time, I met my first husband. And I knew that I wasn't supposed to be with him. Like, I knew God didn't have to tell me, but I knew I wasn't supposed to be with him. But I did it anyway because I was like, well, maybe I could just, bring him to God and, show him that God loves him and bring him to church and tell him. And I convinced myself, knowing full and well that that was not God's will, but I convinced myself. And I did. And I ended up having 2 children with my first husband. And throughout this time, it was very, very difficult time. I went through a lot of hurt and pain, a lot of hard times, started picking up on some bad habits. And I, about 7 years into the relationship, at first I was not married to him, but he wanted to marry me because of taxes. He was like, well, if we get married, we'll get more tax money, right? And I'm all like, yeah, and then I won't be in adultery. So yeah, that works out, because at first he was like, no, we're not going to get married. No. And eventually because of that, we did. So I had a sense of peace, oh, okay. Still being miserable, spiritually, and then I started going back to church again, started seeking the Lord, and I was just repenting and asking God, help me, Lord, I'm sorry, for all of this. And during this time, he had been seeing another woman who he ended up marrying, and they've been together this whole time. And but during that time, he left, and I still sought God. I still was seeking the Lord, like, God, I'll forgive him, I'll wait for him, what do you want me to do? And I hung on. I think I stayed just praying and seeking God for like a year, just seeking him. And then he just told me, I'm not coming back. And I said, well, Lord, what do you want me to do? Because I know that this is not your will. Like, you're against divorce and all this and that. And I was seeking the Lord. And at this time, the Lord was convicting me that I had left him, that I had, in a sense, giving him up for my life now that I had, that, now I wanted God to come and rescue me. And the Lord was dealing with me, and I decided, okay, God, I'm sorry. Like, just restore me and help me. And I allowed the Lord to heal me for 6 months. I remember that because these were like the hardest days of my life, when I would see my children leave and get picked up by their dad, and then knowing that they were going to go see like this other person that he was with. But every time I felt the need to cry, I would cry. Before I would be like, no, I'm not going to cry. I'm not, like my whole life I've been told, no, you're not, that's not, you're not going to cry. You're not sad. You're just being this and this and that. And so I would harbor a lot of these feelings. And because I had such an unstable home and a mom who, was not very affectionate, this time I said, okay, God, if it hurts, I'm going to cry. And times I would put on even worship music, and I would just let the tears roll, and I would just cry. And I would just tell God everything that I felt. Like, God, I don't understand. God, I'm mad. God, I'm this, and that. And through that time, I remember each time almost that I did it, it got easier and easier. And I almost felt like a sense of healing, like that I can't explain. And I knew the Lord was healing me. And so as I'm seeking the Lord and I'm saying, God, what do you want me to do? I'll hang on, I'll wait, or I'll divorce or whatever. So I felt the Lord. I remember, like I said, it was 6 months, because I remember one time my daughter came and she was like, Mom, look, we went and got me and Sarah, that's her name, her stepmom. She goes, we went and got our nails done, and da-da-da-da. And it hurt me so bad, I remember, because I was like, that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to do with her and for her. But I couldn't. I didn't have the money. I was a single mom and struggling to pay my bills. And, at times I would sleep in the car because the lights were turned off. And if I was inside the house and it was cold, I would have to layer up and, sleep in the dark, and even find different ways to, at times, I didn't have running water, so I had to go to the store and buy these gallons of water and sit in the tub and try to shower and clean up and barely use whatever I could to just survive in this house as a single mom. But when those things happen, I would always send the children to their dads, because I didn't want them to see me like that. I didn't want them to know that I was hurting and that, things were rough, So my daughter, being at that time, she was about 5 or 6, she always picked up on it. I felt like she knew. And anytime I was like, oh, you guys are gonna go with your dad. I have to go babysit, because I did a lot of babysitting gigs at this time. She would look at me, and I remember one time she looked at me right before she's getting out, like a scene from the movie, she gets out and she turns and she looks at me. And I remember being just really torn. And she looked at me and she goes, Mom, are you going to be okay? And I looked at her and said, why? Yeah, I said, I'm going to go babysit, trying to convince her. She was like, okay, just wanted to ask you, just wanted to make sure. And I said, okay, no, I'm fine, I'll be great. I'm just going to go babysit, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. So that went on probably, I want to say that was about the sixth month that when my daughter came in, and just happy that she had gone to go get her nails done. And I remember wanting to cry. I wanted to cry and be hurt, but I remember being I had almost this sense of peace. Okay, okay. Because anytime that I felt like I wanted to cry about my daughter telling me of the things that she was doing with her dad and all this family activity stuff that they were doing together, her and my son, and then, stepmom and their dad, I would go to the bathroom and I would just cry, I would allow myself to cry, and then I would let it pass. So I almost knew that day, because I remember I knew that day. I was like, okay, God, you're healing me. I know it. So eventually, the Lord did end up giving me a scripture, and I knew it because I had been seeking the Lord. And He told me not to go back to Egypt. He said, do not return back to Egypt. And at first I didn't understand what that meant. I was like, what do you mean, don't go back to Egypt? And He would even say, if you return to Egypt and you go back, it'll be worse. And I did not understand, so I was seeking the Lord about what He meant. And I remember I was cleaning, and I was talking to this young girl that we worked together in the children's department at the church that I was working at, and I was attending. I also had a job there helping with the children's ministry, and we would get paid. So we were cleaning up, and I remember I was telling her about this word that God said, don't return to Egypt. I don't know what it means. And as I'm telling her this, I'm kind of I'm vacuuming. And I remember I stopped because I felt almost like something opened up. How you hear the veil, the curtains opened. And I remember I was like, I heard his name, the kid's dad's name, and I heard, he represents Egypt. So from that moment on, I was like, oh my goodness, Lord, okay, I get it. Like you're saying, don't return. Like I'm not gonna return. Because he wasn't wanting to come back anyway. So the Lord was releasing me. So during this time, I ended up getting divorced. I ended up meeting Deacon Evelina through the church that I had been attending when I was younger, that they had found a family for me to, go live with. So I met her there. It was the 4th of July. I remember going to this get-together for 4th of July, and she was in the kitchen, and we were talking about her salsa, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good, and it's delicious. You got to give me your recipe. And she's like, yeah. Somehow we ended up connecting, and at that time she was also, I believe, the leader of the prayer nights or prayer days that they would get together to pray at the church. So I started, in a way, attending, but then it was kind of far for me, but I found out that she lived close to me, so I started going to her house. And her house was like the representation of like what you see in Friends, the sitcom Friends. Like there was always somebody coming in, somebody always showing up. There was always food. There was always something to clean. There was somebody always calling at the last minute. Oh, are you guys home? Yeah, come on through. And so I started meeting with Deacon Evelina, and we would pray and at times just talk, and I would just open up as much as I allowed myself at that time to open up. And then somewhere along the line, somewhere in between that time, my sister Faye, she started showing up, and she started showing up to the house. We all got together a lot, and I was so intrigued by her because I remember she brought out this big shofar. Well, at first, she was telling me about this shofar, and it's that long ram's horn that they would use in the Bible to either declare war or alarm the people. And so when she said, oh, yeah, she said it almost like nothing, like, yeah, I have one of those or something. And I'm like, what? I had heard messages, I had seen in pictures and things like that of this, what you would call the horn, the ram's horn, like the shofar. And she was like, oh, yeah, I have one in the back of my trunk. I'm like, you have one this whole time? Like, what? Man, I was like, please bring it out. Like, I wanted to see it. I wanted to hear it for the first time. I don't know. I was very intrigued. So she goes out there, she brings it, and I remember it had all these designs like of the roses. It was this long thing. I didn't realize that you almost, I don't want to say you have to have a certain gift or ability to blow into this like horn. Like, no, you can't just blow into it and you get that woo, whatever that sound is, right? Like, it takes lungs. I don't know. I think to me, I call it a gift, because we've even tried the little small ones, and the long one was like amazing. So when she blew that thing, I remember being like, just in awe. So that began, in a sense, our relationship as Deacon Evelina and my sister Faye. We were just started getting connected. We started getting together. And through that time is when I met Aaron. So at this time, I had been noticing Aaron, and I remember the first time that we went out to eat. It was at Chili's, and I want to say it was a Saturday. And I remember he was like, oh, somehow we had exchanged numbers. And he was like, oh, yeah, when I get off from work, I'll pick, I'll meet you there at the house, because I was going to be at Deacon Evelina's house. I said, okay. So kept waiting. 6 o'clock came, 7 o'clock came, 8 o'clock came. And at this time, I had told a few of my friends that I was at their house just chilling, waiting for this guy to call or text, and nothing. And I almost felt like I started getting upset, like, wow, how dare he? Like, he just stood me up. Like, wow, that is just, you know what? Whatever. You know, like, I don't even care. Like, you know what? I don't even want him to call no more, you know? That's not even, yeah, we're going to get to the good part. So finally, it's like 9 o'clock. And I'm all like, who works this late? In construction, remodeling, or whatever it is he says he's doing. I'm like, okay, whatever. He's like, no, I'm on my way home. And I was, okay, sure, whatever. By now I was just irritated, but I said, okay, fine, we're gonna go. So we get there. I end up waiting for him to shower, hurry up, throw something on. We go to Chili's. I think by now we're getting close to almost 11 o'clock. And I think Chili's was about to close. And I remember being like, it's 10:30, we sit down, and we literally like, okay, I'll have a burger, and I'll have this and that. It was like, just hurry up, eat, pay, let's go, right? So we do that. Of course, I'm all like, wow, this is great. This is turning out fantastic. And then at that time, I had a Suburban, a big like Suburban. So we have nothing else to do. Like, what are we gonna do? So we sit in my car and we're talking. And we're just talking, oh, da, 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 you know, just, I don't even know what we were talking about. But I remember I said to him, why don't you have a girlfriend? Or like, why don't you have a girl? And he looked at me, he goes, oh, I do. She's just not here. I'm like, wow. And I said, what do you mean she's not here? Clearly she's not here. You mean to tell me you have a girl? You have a girlfriend? Yeah, but she's not here. I said, okay. All right, so, you know, it's getting late. Like, what time is it? I think it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. We should probably head home or something. I remember just being like, I cannot believe this. I remember, I think I dropped him off or something, and I went home just feeling so dumb, you know, like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe this guy, like, da-da-da-da. And lo and behold, not too long after that, him and his girlfriend at that time ended up breaking up. And so, but at this time, I think I was showing more interest. I was the one that was, you know, just let him know, hey, I'm here. But then I was still upset about the whole thing. And like, what in the world? Like, oh man, yeah. So then his birthday came around, and I remember having this Groupon deal of, it was like a steakhouse where you get all that type of meat cut up for you. They bring it to, it's like a Brazilian steakhouse kind of place. It was a deal that I was going to use on my brother because they have about the same birthdays. So, but then I was like, oh, anyway, so to get to that point, I had that Groupon deal. But then I get off from work, this on a Saturday, and I called Deacon Evelina, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, come over, we're throwing Aaron a birthday party, you should come. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, no, by the time I get there, it's going to be late. And, you know, she's like, no, just come on by. And I'm all like, okay. So then I'm like, well, I don't want to show up with nothing. So I'm just going to buy a card and put some money in it. I'm like, I'm just going to give him $20, you know? And really, that was generous because, you know, I'm a single mom. He done did me wrong. And I'm still like, I want to just bless him, you know? And so, so I show up. And I end up being one of the last people at the party and kind of cleaning up. And then he's going through his gifts. And I remember we're at the table. It was me, Deacon Evelina, and Aaron. And he's, oh, yeah, look, so I gave him this, gave him that. And then he gets to my card. And he's like, sweet, you know, because it was the $20 in there. And then she goes, wait, what? Deacon Evelina goes, what? Somebody gave you cash? Who would do that? And I'm all like... And they go, well, she did. I was like, I didn't know you were going to have a party. And so I kind of felt almost bad because it wasn't like a personal gift, right? It was more like, oh, here you go, you know? But still, like I said, that was very generous. I still felt pretty generous about the money, you know? And he was happy. He got $20, you know? And so then, because I felt bad, I was like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, oh my gosh, like, you know what? I'll just take him to that Brazilian place I was going to take my brother to, but I'll just take him there. So I told him, hey, whenever you have time, let me know so I can schedule this. We got to go during the week, though, because sometimes Groupon, you have to use it during the week. You can't use it on the weekends. So that was a deal. Just tell me during the week so we can meet up or whatever we got to do. So he was lingering. I'm looking. It was, I think, like 2 weeks passed. And I was like, kind of like, man, is he going to tell me what? And I remember just being so irritated because I'm like, this guy, you know what? He clearly does not like me. He clearly, like, you know, now I hurt my own feelings, you know? Because now I'm like literally, like, I gave you $20. I'm offering a free steakhouse Brazilian date. Like, my gosh, what else, right? And I finally said, okay, you know what? If I ask him one more time when he's available, I said, that's it. I'm canceling because I was getting so close to the expiration date on that thing. And I'm like, I paid $60 for this when it could have been, you know, more. But still, I was like, so I finally said, okay. So I asked him, I said, okay, are you going to be able to go or not? Because this thing is going to expire like this week. Like, I need you to tell me, oh, yeah, let's go. I said, okay. So that began basically our journey. We went to the steakhouse. We went, and it's almost, I think, like the first time that I want to say that we kind of connected. I don't know. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I was the only one that connected, and I just felt like, oh, you know, like it turned out great, you know. So after that, we do... Sorry. So after that, we sort of, in a way, just kept communication, kept talking. And we end up basically, very quickly, we ended up getting married. And we end up getting married. And at this time, I was living with a family member of the family that took me in. I was living with one of their family members. She was kind of older lady. She had some mental issues and, you know, other stuff. And so I was living there. So when we got married, me and Aaron ended up going there to live. So we lived there for a while. And then after that, we end up basically moving. Eventually, all of the family somehow, our family, trickled into this house. I say trickled in because we had like this other extra room in the house. This house was kind of big, and Deacon Evelina and Deacon Ben ended up moving in, right? So we're all like, oh, great, okay, it works out. You know, we're all like pitching in, we're saving money and all this. And then I don't know what happened. I think at this time, Joshua and Faye were living in Houston, and something happened over there. Then they end up coming back. They don't have a place to go. So we end up all living together with this woman who she's a little off. And I say off because she really was kind of off. Like, one time we caught her using, I can't remember if it was ours or if it was Joshua and Faye's scope. I think it was theirs. And she literally just, instead of grabbing the cap to like pour it in, she was like putting the whole thing in her mouth, swish, you know, and we caught her and we're thinking like, oh my gosh, how many times has she done that? Like, what? Like, and this is not even close to some of the stories, right? But yeah, so the house ended up becoming a pretty full house quickly. And then we end up moving to another house, all of us together. And this house was, what did we call this house? Oh, the house of hell. It was bad. It was so bad. We had downgraded to the minimal rooms. We were all, at one time we had honey dripping through the walls of the windows. I'm not even kidding. Like, we couldn't believe it. We found out eventually that there was bees living in between the walls, and there was honey that was just dripping because we would see them quite a bit. We're like, where are these bees coming from? Like, so weird. And so we found out that, yeah, there were bees, and they had, who knows, we don't even know to this day, but there was honey like dripping through. And at first I think we were all like, oh, wow, the blessing of the Lord, it's honey. Oh my gosh, wow, the Lord, this a good thing, right? We're all excited. At this time, I think we were a little bit more on the religious side. And we were all like, wow, we're dripping honey. This means prosperity and who knows what else, right? And I'm telling you, this house was like literally falling apart. We had at one point also, we had fire ants that literally invaded, I believe it was our room. It was mine and Aaron's room. And we would see these little ants, at first we're like, what? Okay. We try to like kill them and whatever. And then I don't know if somebody went outside and sprayed for the ants, to kill them. And they decided, oh yeah, no, we got to find shelter. So it decided to come through our walls in our room. And they were everywhere, unbelievable. I remember sitting there being like, oh my gosh, they're getting bigger and there's a bigger army of them coming through. Where are they coming through from? Like everywhere on the walls. And I was like, oh my gosh, Deacon Evelina came in and helped me. We were trying to figure it out. We had, I think, roaches. We had oh my gosh, the kitchen, the underneath the sink was falling apart. It was mildewy. It was bad. Really bad. So this house, eventually we decided I remember me and Faye, we would go outside and she would blow the shofar and we would declare war and in the name of Jesus, we come against all these giants and they're not going to attack us. We're victorious. And we were declaring war on whoever was listening. Because the enemy was not. It was really bad. And I remember we were all just be like, no, and so eventually, little by little, me and Aaron decided we were just going to get our own apartment because it was just becoming a lot. With me having 2 kids and then me and Aaron by now, I think we had our second child. So there was 4 children and each room was, I remember at this time, Faye and Joshua were sleeping in the living room. That was their room. At one point, we did not have room for nobody, but they eventually moved in again. And then we were literally having to come to go to the kitchen because you had to go through the living room to get to the kitchen. So it was like, oh, sorry, we got to go through your room at 11 o'clock at night to, and the bed was there was no room. You would be like, okay, sorry, excuse me, to get to the kitchen. It was crazy. So Aaron and I decided, okay, maybe it's time for us to get our new place. So we ended up at this time believing the Lord that he will make a way for us to get an apartment of me and Aaron because we hadn't really necessarily lived together at all since we got married. So we end up getting the apartment by the grace of God. We know that it was him because we still don't know how it happened, but I know God was being good to us. So at this time, we also had picked up the habit together of drinking. So we had also picked up a habit of drinking here and there at first. We move into this place and we decide, okay, this is a new beginning. We're going to just dedicate this place to the Lord and we're going to just serve God and we're going to just, give him the glory and the honor. And although our intentions were good, we did not follow through. We actually ended up starting to slowly drink every day together. And even though through that time, we were doing that, the Lord would still provide, even though sometimes it was the last minute. When I say the last minute, I'm talking about rent was due last night at 12 o'clock, at night. And we're literally just now getting money the following day. And, because of the Lord, and I recognize now that it was really the Lord's grace and mercy upon us and really thinking of our children. The Lord was covering our children, and I just didn't recognize it like that. I just thought, because God's good and, he's merciful. I didn't realize that the Lord could have also been doing it for their sake, And so Aaron and I, we started drinking, and at this time, I believe we ended up having Steph and I, our last boy, and I think he might have been 4 or 5 months. And Deacon Evelina had told us about revival here at the church that she had been attending, and we had sort of, been following. At that time, she would get emails. What were they called? That they would post, and you would read. There were blogs that they would post, and we would read. She would read it to us, and So we had been hearing about Fire of God. We had been hearing about Bishop, and she said, you guys should go. You guys should, attend. And we're like, okay, not sure how, but we ended up coming, and that was our first time coming here. And we came, and even during that time, we were still drinking. We were still, at the hotel, here and there, not like terrible, but we were still, coming here and, just, yeah, it was. And so we end up coming, and then, but somehow Aaron and I both felt like, I feel that we're supposed to be here. I feel that we're supposed to, I don't know, be here. What do you think? Yeah, I think so too. Okay, maybe. And so we went back to Texas, and we were still almost contemplating, yes, no, God, is it? Do you want us there? What is it? Like, I don't know. And, I didn't want to leave my 2 kids in Texas. By now, they're a little bit older now. My daughter was a teenager. She was about 14. And so I didn't want to leave them, but I knew that our situation was not getting better. And I knew that something had to change. I just didn't know how and what, except do we move there? So eventually we end up coming here. And I want to say that I'm really sorry, HD and HD was like, we was talking about you guys, because you guys were like the guinea pigs to have us as the first family to move in with you guys. And I apologize for any distress I may have caused. And especially, because at that time, even though Aaron, at this time, he was the one that was videoed having his episode, I was at work. I worked at Lazy Dog. That was like my first job. And I really loved this job. I really enjoyed it. And I remember just getting this call. And I would work the night shift, so I wouldn't get off until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I remember I got a call or something, and I remember being like, what? And they're like, yes, Aaron's, drunk, and we found him, and I'm all like, oh my gosh, it's over, right? Like I'm thinking like we're done, like they know, because at this time I think we were still kind of drinking together. I'm not sure. I can't remember, unless I was like, at this time I wasn't drinking, but I think I was trying not to drink, and I was staying pretty faithful. I think I stayed pretty faithful for a few months, for several months. But since he got caught, it scared me, and I was like, well, I gotta make sure that I don't, And so I get home. I remember getting home, and I just hear him in the bathroom banging on things. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and I remember looking. I think I asked DeMarissa, I was like, what is he doing? She goes, I don't know. And I was like, I knew that something had to get fixed in that bathroom, but we didn't know what it was, but this is the time he decides to do this, that he got busted and he's drunk, and I don't think he even knew what he was doing. And we're both like, what is going on? So that scared me straight. And so I stayed sober for a while, and then I ended up working. I remember working at the bank at night. So once again, I wouldn't get home till almost, at times, I think at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So slowly but surely, things started to, for me, I slowly started to get triggered, because I felt that Aaron was getting away with a lot of things. I was getting corrected on, being mom, being the wife, and I'm not really understanding what this means. Like what, not that I don't understand that part, but the leadership part I was not understanding. I did not come from a church where I was close to pastors and other leaders that in any kind of way explained or showed me what that looked like, the order of things, the way that God wants you to follow. So for me, I felt like it was a little extreme. I felt like this is a lot. I don't know if I can I started feeling the pressure. I was coming home late and then getting up in the morning to be with the boys. And so little by little, I started, to drink again. So then after that, our time was up with D. Marissa and HD Jr. Then we ended up moving in with Elder Matas. And once again, I'm so sorry. I know, I know we're laughing, but I really, I know that I put you guys through some things, probably more than your teenagers. I still, I still remember, one time I came home at, man, I don't know what time it was, 2:30, way past really my curfew in the sense of work. And I think I was just taking my time coming home. They had been suspicious of me, and I remember just showing up real la da da da, nothing, And I remember opening the door to the house, and then they were right there by the stairs, and I'm all like that. Oh, hey, hi. So what's up? What are you guys doing? What are you doing up so late? And I remember they were trying to figure out what are you doing, And so anyway, that was one of many other harsh moments that, I'm really sorry for putting you guys through that, really. And it does. It hurts me because I understand now. I understand that everybody here has played a role of love, of wanting to help and to encourage. When you come from a broken place and a place that even sometimes you don't understand the system and the order of things, you think that people are being harsh and that they're being mean and that they're being, they're not understanding you. And I went through that. And I felt at this time, I felt that Elder Mata had been especially leaning more towards Aaron. He was more once I remember he took him out. I remember because everything changed after this, right? He took him out when it had, because I had gone out with Elder Ellen to have our kind of bonding moment. Okay, open up, let's talk, what's going on? So I'm all yeah, and told her, a little bit. And then Elder Daniel took Aaron. And after this, it was I guess Aaron decided to open up or something, I don't know, and was telling him who knows what about me and, probably all sorts of things she's like this, she's controlling, she's this and she's that, and I remember, that was me. I'm not saying that's what he did. I don't know. Did you? No. But I can almost, see it happening, I mean, I'm not sure that he would have great things to say about me because at that time, I felt he went and told him. And because I started noticing that it was more okay, Nancy, we're coming after you, right? And I did. I felt like they were after me, right? But not in a bad way. It was more you need help. We're trying to help you, and we're going to guide you for you to be the best mom, best wife that God, wants you to be. And, yeah, I felt at that time, everything was about Aaron, everything was about Aaron and take care of Aaron and, be good to Aaron and be this and that. And, and I'm all but what about me? I'm hurting, I'm suffering, nobody understands. And I hate, because even at that time I was I hate that I have to drink. I hate that I want to go do this. I hate it. And I would cry and ask God, help me, Lord, because I want to drop this. I don't want to live like this either. I know I'm supposed to be picking you. So anyway, but yeah, at this time I felt everything was about Aaron, and maybe it was, and that's okay, right? But it didn't feel very good. It felt pretty awful, and I was still, I was still drinking. I was still off and on, not every day, but it was evident that something was going on. And after we left Matas and we went and got our own home and we lived with Joshua and Faye and Deacon Ben and Deacon Avelina, it was it was good. It seemed like things were going to change. It was going to be great. Still had some battles, of course, but now I felt okay, we kind of have a break, or, I don't know. I'm not really sure why I'm saying we had a break, but maybe it was because I felt in a sense, we could be ourselves and get to know each other again. Me and Aaron, at least, And so yeah, I ended up through that time still continuing, trying to quit, trying to stop drinking, and it wasn't getting better. It wasn't getting better at all. I felt myself shutting down because I wasn't being honest. I wasn't being truthful as much as I wanted to. I was scared to tell that I was struggling. I was scared to say, I can't stop, but I want to stop, and I don't know what to do. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can I just not do it? And it got to the point where, now me and Faye were kind of, like having issues when before we weren't. I think, just normal, typical things. But then it started getting to, it was like pretty, pretty intense. To the point where it was ridiculous. Like, I think now if we were to tell some of the stuff that went on, it would be like hilarious, like a sitcom kind of, you could write a skit for it and everybody would, enjoy what was happening. So the last thing that took me basically to rehab, where I knew I had to, was I had came to prayer with Deacon Evelina, and I came with her to pray, and I decided that during the prayer time I was going to sneak out and go get me a drink. So I went down there to the store and came back, sat outside, and decided to drink. And I ended up getting like terribly plastered, like horribly, like I don't even know what happened. To this day, I really don't know what happened, And I remember just in the car throwing up. I don't know what I did in the meantime while she was looking for me, but I remember getting home and knowing things were bad. Like, I knew that was it. I knew that was my last straw. That was it. So I remember I woke up in the middle of the night and I just felt as if God had left me, as if like his presence. And I got really scared. And I said, Lord, don't leave me. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to change. I want to. But I say yes. I'll say yes to you. I knew at that moment I was going to have to go to rehab. I knew it. And so that day I cried out with all my heart. And I just said yes. And so I ended up going to rehab for a year. And during this time, I'm still mad at Aaron, Like, I'm still, like, it's all his fault, I'm sure. At that time, it was everything, Even though I knew it was my fault, of course. But I had felt just so hurt by things that were coming out and they were supposed to help us, but I was starting to take it personal. I was getting offended. I didn't want to forgive. I was angry. And when I went to the rehab, I think I said, you know what? I don't want to be with him no more. I don't want to be with him. And he had confessed some things, and I felt like I was right. Even if I wanted to leave him, if I didn't want to come back, I felt that I was going to be justified by God, And slowly but surely, it got more intense because I remember the first time after 30-day blackout where you don't talk to them, right? You don't talk to anybody. He shows up and he's in his white shirt and it's popping up all like, hey, what's up? Like, and I'm all like, gosh, he seems happy, like, wow, what's going on over there? And so he sits down, he's all like, and I look at him like, so how are you? He's like, oh, I'm great. And I'm like, oh, no, that's great. Okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah. So we're having like group Friday nights now. And yeah, we're the Matas, and we're going over there. And yeah, so they saw me the other day and they were like, hey, Aaron, how are you? And you know what I said? And I'm all like, what? He's like, yeah, oh, I'm great. I'm single as a Pringle. And I'm all like, oh, wow, really? Single as a Pringle? Okay. And then he decides to tell me that on the following Friday, that Elder Matas decided, as an insider's joke, to bring him Pringles for the wonderful joke that he thought was funny. And on the inside, I am dying. Like, he don't even miss me. He doesn't even care. Like, I'm sounding pretty dramatic, but I was really hurt. Like, I was actually really oh my gosh, he doesn't care. He doesn't love me. And so that really led even more, in a way, finalized my decision that I didn't want to come back. So I end up, after 6 months, I ended up, in the sense, finding favor in the pastor's eyes and his wife to basically offer me a position to come be her armor bearer. I didn't really understand what that meant. I think I had seen it as like I'm an assistant, like I help out with whatever she needs, right? And so I ended up moving to their house. I thought the Lord was like, wow, I'm finding favor. It's the Lord. Like, I want to do God's work. And none of that was not true. I genuinely was like, I want to help people. I want to, do this ministry. And I want to be. So I thought that God was allowing me to find favor. And I'm sure he was. But at the same time, now that I step back and I look, I see that God was orchestrating all of this to basically intensify the fire, what led up to my moment of knowing, like, okay, God, only you are doing this. And it got pretty intense when I moved over there. It was fine at first. Everything seemed to be going good, and this is great. And then I felt like things were starting to get more and more like there was a lot more pressure to do this, to do that, to be this, to be that. And I felt myself getting tired and weary. And I remember thinking, like, I am exhausted, Lord. Like, I am tired. I miss my children. And during this time, I was also filing for divorce. I was filing, and I was set that this was it. But every time I would go online to the papers that I had worked on 3 hours, just to fill out some parts of this paperwork that you have to do, it would tell me it was there. It had the timestamp, but when I would click on it, it would be like starting all over again. It would say start, not pending. Pending meaning I had been working on it. I can go back and start where I left off. No, it was start. And I'm like, so I did that 3 different times in different time periods. And I finally was like, I kind of remember thinking, God, is this you, right? Like, I don't know. I don't think so. It's just probably something wrong with the internet, right? But yeah, so then I'm thinking, no, Lord, because I feel like, like I'm right. Like I'm pretty sure that, you got my back. Like, you're blessing me. Look at where I'm at, And so at this time, I started fasting because I sensed that my season was shifting, and I don't know how to describe that, but I sensed it. And so I said, okay, God, okay, fine. I'm going to go ahead. I found a lady who said that she was willing to help me with the paperwork. She had even brought it to me in paper form because I told her what had happened. And the day that she brought it was the day that I remember I had been fasting for the Lord to show me my next step. Where am I going to move? What about my kids? How is this whole divorce thing going to play out? Like, I'm going to seek God. And I had been seeking the Lord. So on this day that she brought me those papers was the day that I was in the closet. And I remember the Lord revealing to me my own sin. Showing me how I had betrayed him. How I had hurt him. How I was so focused on Aaron and focused on what he did to me and how he made me feel or didn't make me feel, in the sense of like, oh, he doesn't love me or whatever, And then when the Lord showed me my own sin, it broke me. It broke me so deep because that's not what I was asking for. I wasn't asking, because I wasn't thinking of God. I wasn't thinking of him. So when he showed it to me, all I could do was just weep and cry and say, God, I'm sorry. This whole time I didn't even think of you. I thought I was justified and you were. And this whole time, you've been so good to me, and I just didn't recognize it, and I stopped asking. And so I started repenting for all of my sin, and so at this time, I had noticed Aaron changing at the same time. I had seen how he was just changing. I didn't see like the person that at first was like, you need to come back, and you need to, you need to come take care of the boys, and you need to, pay child support, because one time he told me that, and I was like, what? But like I knew what he meant, but I was like, child support. So that even would trigger me more, right? And so I started noticing a change in him. I noticed him like not saying anything. He was pretty calm, cool. He was, I could just see the change, but I didn't want to let him know, because, I didn't want him to be all like, yeah, I'm praying, I'm reading, I'm doing great over here, trusting God. But I saw it. And so I remember, so a week went by, and all I could do was repent and say, okay, God, you know what, Lord? I sensed that I could sense what he wanted me to do, and that was to come back. And at first, I'm not gonna lie to you, I fought it because I thought I was right, and that this was a new beginning for me, and all this and that. But then I said, no, Lord, like, I've hurt you, I betrayed you, and I need to make it right. And so I said, okay. So I don't know if I talked to him, we talked. I don't know if it was just one of those, like, it just happened and I knew I was coming back and Aaron knew I was coming back. Like, I don't know. But somehow it just was like, I'm back, like as if nothing, like, and we had conversations, of, coming back, and even the moving out and all that. I was there. I was helping move a few things, clean up a little bit, and that was around the first time that I saw my in-laws and my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. And I guess it was like, okay, I guess this is it. It's really going to happen. And I was excited to come back to my kids. And I was excited to come back, to be honest. There were times that I did watch online. A couple times I would be like, ooh, what are they doing? I want to see what they're doing. Oh, ABC and them had a baby. Looks like that's a new baby. Like, I don't know. I just kind of would just kind of keep tabs in a way here and there. I just was curious still, because my heart was still here, but I was angry. I didn't have forgiveness in my heart towards Aaron, and so, but I knew I was supposed to be here. And so I left over there, came here, and I'm here. And I know that there's still a lot of work that I have to do. The Lord is peeling layers off even now. I'm learning to open up to especially Elder Janina, and learning to be vulnerable, because I think that as a child, I didn't really get a chance to know what that was like. I was always told what you felt, what you were going to do, how you were going to do it, and you just get over it. But I'm learning to be vulnerable with her. I'm learning to open up. And I just want to say to all of you who prayed, it's really a miracle. It really is that I'm here. I just want you guys to acknowledge that it was the Lord. It was the Lord. I had nothing to do with it. I was actually praying against it. Like, it's ridiculous. I was, but I knew everything inside of me, that even when I was over there, there were great people. Even the pastor he would even ask me, are you sure, Nancy, are you sure you made up your mind that you want to divorce him? Yes, I'm sure. Yes, Pastor. Yes, I'm sure. And I would even get irritated that he would ask me, because I'm like, I said already, but he kept being like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, yes. So it's a miracle that I'm here. It's really God's grace and mercy that I'm here. I'm learning to even understand what his love means. Like how can he love me so much? Even when I came back and I had already these flights scheduled for me to go see my kids and my brother, one of my brothers sick over there, that I get a message from, I know that they probably don't want me to really say, much about it because they're very humble, but they felt the need to bless me while I'm over there with my children, to bless me so I can have a good time with my kids. And I remember when I saw that, I was so in shock because I had just opened up a devotional that said, I am restoring your joy. And I was like, God, how can you be so good to me? Like, how can you even now be so good to me? I don't get it. Like, I don't deserve it. Like, I'm such a sinful, prideful person, and I had unforgiveness in my heart. And even though I wanted to forgive, I just didn't understand what it meant and what that looked like. But God was showing it to me through his actions upon me of just having you guys pray over me and, like hugging me when I came and just welcome me back. Like, hey, welcome back. Like it was nothing, it was not that it wasn't nothing, but you guys just embraced me. And I just want to say thank you for all of you who prayed, who believed, who helped my family, even my boys. And, I want to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for a lot of you that had to, experience my behavior, and, my bad decisions and my sin. And I want to thank you guys for being there, for supporting, like I said, my husband during this time. And, I do want to say thank you, and I want to say that I'm sorry. And I just want to make things right with the Lord, and whatever that looks like, I'm willing. I know it's a journey. It's a good journey, though. It's good because I feel like I'm in God's will now. Even though it looked hopeless, because of him, there is life. And I was going to say, I had a scripture, Jeremiah 43:19, where the Lord had given to me and Aaron before we left Texas, that is said that the Lord will make rivers and dry deserts, and that he would do a new thing, and that it springs forth. Don't you perceive it? No, I didn't perceive it. I did not understand what any of that meant. And I mean, a lot of the symbolism, a lot of like what that represents literally was what I feel has been the past 2 years. And I speak for myself. I'm not really sure about Aaron, but I'm pretty sure that he can agree that the majority of this scripture is just, man, we were a dry desert. We were dead spiritually. God brought us here, and God delivered him first, and I recognize it now. I believe that the reason God delivered him first was because he knew that I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, and one of us needed to be ready for our children, even for the ministry, for him. Like one of us had to be ready. One of us had to be there present. And even though I wanted to and I tried, I was struggling. I was the one that wasn't. And so I just want to give God the glory and the honor. I want to thank all of you. I want to say I'm sorry for anyone that I may have hurt, I'm overlooking. And I just want to thank the pastors, because they've been so gracious. They've been so kind. And even though at times I've been scared of them, not because they're doing anything, it was me. I'm the one that's like over here, like Pastor says, doing nonsense, and I would be scared anytime I would see that phone light up and it said Pastor. All I would see was Pastor. I would be like, oh my God, what now? Oh no, God, what did I do now? What am I gonna do now? Like, what do they know? Sometimes like, what do they know? What did the Lord tell them? Like, what is it this time? What did? You don't know until you click it. You don't even want to open it. You're kind of like, okay, I know I have to respond somehow. I have to say something, right? Like, and so, yeah. And then, of course, there's the good ones, like, like, hey, you're doing good. Or, even then, they would try to support me and encourage me. And, so, yeah, it's, but I just want to say thank you again. And to God be the glory. Amen.